The most flavorful ice cream brand in America was built by a man who cannot taste ice cream. Never could. Pick up a pint of Ben & Jerry's. It is heavier than anything else on the shelf. Denser. More chunks per spoonful. That is not quality control. That is a man compensating for a sense he does not have. He sold this company for $326 million. That was 26 years ago. They promised to protect what he built. Now he wants it back. 528,000 pints. Every day. One facility in Waterbury, Vermont, running around the clock. But here is what built that volume. Cookie dough ice cream did not exist anywhere before 1984. An anonymous fan stuck a note on the suggestion board at the Burlington shop. Took 7 years to solve mass production. Raw dough that would not make anyone sick at factory scale. Today, every competitor sells a version. One note, one entire subcategory. Cherry Garcia started the same way. That flavor outsold everything else in America for 10 years straight. The two biggest flavors in the lineup were never invented by the company. They were requested by strangers. So what actually happens between a suggestion board and a sealed pint? It starts with Vermont milk, 14% butterfat, higher than the industry standard. Cream, sugar, egg yolks, it pools into steel vats, thick, pale yellow. You can see the richness before anyone measures it. The milk gets pumped through steel pipes into a pasteurizer, 82 degrees Celsius, 25 seconds. Hot enough to kill bacteria, not hot enough to cook it. Steam hisses through the joints. If you tasted the milk right now, you would not know anything happened. Next, homogenization. Fat globules blasted under pressure through tiny nozzles, broken into microscopic particles. Smooth instead of greasy. Think of it as a pressure wash for fat molecules. Then the mix sits. An aging tank, chilled, at least 4 hours. Fat crystals form, proteins stabilize, the base thickens. Skip this step. The ice cream will not hold air. Nothing visible happens. The tank just hums, but everything changes. Now the continuous freezer. The step that separates Ben & Jerry's from the rest. Mix gets pumped in, air injected at the same time. Blades scrape the barrel walls. Air folds into the base. It comes out at -5 degrees Celsius. Looks like soft serve. That air is called overrun. More air means lighter, cheaper ice cream. Ben & Jerry's runs lower overrun than most competitors. Less air, denser pints, heavier in your hand. Direct consequence of the anosmia. He could not taste the ice cream, so he needed more intensity per spoonful. Light and airy, he could not feel it. They packed it tighter. Pick up any pint of Ben & Jerry's and any pint of a competitor, feel the weight. That difference is the missing air. Before Ben & Jerry's, the only things going into ice cream were fruit and nuts. The machine was called a fruit feeder. They renamed it the chunk feeder. Cookie dough, brownies, candy bars, fudge fish, loaded into a hopper. A star wheel pushes chunks into the frozen stream. They argued over chunk size, froze a case of Heath bars, climbed a ladder, threw the case onto concrete. The shards that scattered across the floor, that became the texture standard. After the chunks, the variegator, fudge, caramel, peanut butter, pumped through a guidance system in precise ribbons. Calibrate it wrong, the swirl sinks to the bottom. Pints fill on a high-speed line, then into the hardening tunnel, -34 degrees Celsius. Fog rolls out when the door opens. A quality worker pulls a random pint, slices it into quarters. Cross-section like a geological core sample. Swirls unbroken, chunks dispersed. If anything is off, swirl too thin, chunks clustered to one side, the batch gets flagged. 528,000 pints a day. The machine that creates the fudge column in a Coors pint, based on a German sausage maker. That is the process today. None of it existed in 1978. Ben Cohen, failed potter, Jerry Greenfield, rejected from medical school, twice. Best friends since junior high on Long Island. No plan, no direction. They originally wanted to deliver bagels, lox, and the Sunday New York Times door-to-door. Equipment was too expensive, so they pivoted. Split a $5 Penn State correspondence course, textbook in the mail. To learn how to run a business, they read 20-cent brochures at the post office. Total education, about $7. First shop, a renovated gas station in Burlington, Vermont. They sold soup, crepes, pottery, and ice cream. Jerry was CEO. Ben got top billing as compensation. Then something else happened. Free Cone Day. Gave away ice cream to build word of mouth. 1984, a Vermont-only IPO raised $750,000. Then the Cowmobile, a modified mobile home, drove across America handing out free scoops. It burned to the ground on the way home. Ben said it looked like a giant baked Alaska. Then the real fight. Häagen-Dazs told their distributor, "Drop Ben & Jerry's or lose all Pillsbury products." Ben could not afford lawyers, not against a $4 billion corporation. So he ran a guerrilla campaign, planes over stadiums trailing banners that read, "What's the doughboy afraid of?" A Rolling Stone ad. Helped 2 Vermont hippies fight the corporate giants. Settled out of court. March 1985. Here is where the story flips. They won that fight. Built the most trusted name in ice cream. Then, in the year 2000, they sold it, $326 million to Unilever. Part of the deal, a legally binding clause, an independent board to protect the social mission. Then, Unilever spun off its entire ice cream division into a new company, Magnum. By January 2026, the board was dismantled. The CEO was fired for supporting activism. Jerry Greenfield resigned after 47 years. And Ben Cohen walked back to the corner where the first shop opened and asked the public to help him take his company back. The Waterbury factory runs 24 hours a day. Same milk, same chunks, same process. The continuous freezer still runs low-overrun. The chunk feeder still drops cookie dough and brownies into the frozen stream. The variegator still pumps fudge ribbons through every pint. Nothing about the ice cream has changed. But somewhere between the aging tank and the sealed pint, something disappeared. The brand used to have a voice, not a slogan, not a tagline. The kind that said things ice cream companies do not normally say. The founders put that in the contract when they sold, legally binding, non-negotiable. For 20 years, it held. Then the new owners shut it down. The ice cream still tastes the same, but the man who built it says it is not the same company. He is back on the corner where the first shop opened. 48 years later, still fighting. Not for the recipe, not for the factory. For the one thing the contract was supposed to protect, and the one thing you cannot taste in a spoonful. The pint is still dense, still heavy, still packed with chunks, but the man who made it that way says something is missing. And it is not an ingredient. That's the process. We reveal how things actually work, one story at a time. If there's something you'd like us to explore next, let us know. Until then, trust the process.